Hi everyone, welcome to Lights, Camera, Action. I'm Allison Howard and your host for tonight. Tonight I'm going to be interviewing three wonderful actors who are all from the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. First we have Firas Natour, Catherine Browning, and James Bacon. Thank you so much for coming in and being willing to come and talk to all of us. This is wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So to start things off, how did each of you get into acting?
Well, why don't you start?
Well, I think like my first ever acting thing was in 6th grade. I did it by coincidence when one of the students decided to bail out on a show 2 minutes before it it was on stage. So I had to fill in for the student, and it was also like my first improv, I would say, because I didn't know what am I supposed to be doing.
Right.
So that was that, and then I tried to continue in high school, but I got rejected. The group was already full, from what they said. And then in college, I formed a group with other students, and we started doing like regular shows, theater shows, whether it's writing or acting in them and stuff like that. And then it was still a hobby 3 years after I graduated, and I got my first TV job. So I decided, okay, that's what I want to do.
Wow.
So that's it.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah.
That's great. Kay, how about you?
Well, I was actually working in Washington as series producer for a political talk show called Think Tank, hosted by Ben Wattenberg. And the company that I worked for, New River Media, produced a half a dozen shows for PBS and did a lot of series and specials and whatnot. And one day, the executive producer came in and said, I'm putting you in front of the camera. You're going to interview Eric Felton, who was the star of one of our specials, as a special feature to go with the show, on the DVD. So with no warning, I'm stuck in front of the camera, and having always wanted to do that, but I felt like the guy in broadcast news who always wants to be the anchor, and then he finally gets in front of the camera and gets a chance and feels like he's having a heart attack. That's what I felt like. So I did a terrible job. I looked absolutely awful on camera, but I came away feeling like I loved that sensation of being a more visible part of that creative process, and absolutely determined never to do that badly again. So I jumped into drama classes and getting into short films, and I have loved it ever since. It's absolutely the only thing I want to do.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you had never interviewed anybody before on camera?
Not on camera. I had done a lot of interviews where only they appeared, and then we cut it into the show. But I had never done a two-camera shoot where they actually saw my face. So that was very unnerving. But, as I say, I just came away thinking, I love doing this. I want to do it really well, and I want to do it as an actor, and to be, into the kind of entertainment product that is more creative and whatnot. It was a great experience. It was a lovely opportunity.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a way to, another amazing
jumping
journey and just jumping right in.
Yeah.
Jimmy, how about you?
I don't know if I can top either of those. No, acting is my full-time job, but I have a part-time job being a policeman to help pay my mortgage. And I did a short stint at the police academy where I was asked to narrate a training tape. So I narrated that, and I had a lot of people listen to it and say, wow, you should try to do something with your voice. So my wife Laura contacted an agent. I called the agent. The agent said, yeah, you got a great voice. Send us a picture. We'll hook you up. I said, why do you want a picture? This is not usually what you put on TV. And she said, no, send it. And the first job she got me was an on-camera Super Bowl commercial. So
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
It's just
That is
amazing.
unreal. So you were one of the commercials that aired during
the Super Bowl. Not this past year, but a year and a half ago. February of 2012.
Wow.
So So from that, now, it's gone straight to my head, and I go, Academy, look out, here I come. So that's how I've gotten here.
That's amazing. Now, have you ever had to use any of your policing skills in a role before? Have you ever had to play a police officer?
Yes, I have played a police officer a couple times, and then what's even more complicated is I've gotten to play a bad guy or a suspect in a couple, which is probably difficult for me. I have to bite my tongue because they'll be shooting something, and I'll go, that's not the way the police would really do it. And they go, will you shut up? That's not what we hired you for.
Oh, wow.
So that can be humorous and trying at the same time. But yes, I have. They have asked me, technical questions and stuff like that.
That's amazing. So obviously, I love meeting people where acting was not necessarily their original career path. But I understand, Kay, you mentioned that you've been taking classes. Have you found that classes have been helpful? Have you had an opportunity to network through them and maybe get jobs through the classes?
I actually found that I filled my head with so much information initially that in the past year it's been a matter of kind of getting rid of a lot of what I have learned and boiling it down to just a few sentences that really help me when I'm going in and trying to create a role. An awful lot of acting is really reacting to the other person. Eli Wallach said, the secret to acting is listening to people. Right. So focusing on the person who is in the scene with you and reacting in a natural way to that. Children know how to do this instinctively. There have been a number of films out recently that have used people hired on location with no acting background at all who just do phenomenal jobs on camera. So if you have that instinct for what you're doing and you can come across with a very natural, true performance, I think in a way that the formal lessons get in the way of that.
That's interesting.
And so you have to learn it and then unlearn it to some extent.
Certainly. Now, you mentioned that you have done theater. Have you had an opportunity to do theater? Because I know theater acting and film acting
it's quite different.
Are very different. And a lot of times theater actors need to unlearn what they do for film, and film actors need to relearn in a way for theater. Now, did you have any problems going from, or any challenges going from theater-based acting to then film?
Yeah, but it's way easier to go from theater to film than the other way around, because you can always tone it down from theater to film, but it's not that easy to do the opposite, and especially with projecting more, and like there's a lot of techniques that are involved in theater. So if you know theater, I call it like it's the mother of acting. So if you know theater, you can do everything else well. So yeah, like I always give this advice to new actors is you have to do theater work even if you're not interested in doing theater, but it just teaches you a lot of things.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, so there's a lot of theater that happens in the DC area, as well as a lot of indie films, a lot of industrials, and commercials. Now, I know each of you have done quite a few different things. Has there ever been a particular experience that you've had, whether it be on stage or in front of a camera, that has been your favorite that you've had thus far?
Oh, gee.
It's hard to pick one.
Or maybe make it like your top 2 or top 3.
My favorite experience was really, I had a chance to shoot a scene for House of Cards earlier this summer, and with director James Foley, who I, of course, had never worked with before. And I was a day player. It's a small role, very risky, because when you're working a day player role, the chance that scene is actually going to make it into the show is small there, because they're cutting things, to a huge extent as they go. But I was in a scene with Molly Parker and Mahershala Ali, and James Foley came up to me and said, I'm watching you on camera, and I can see when Molly comes at you and confronts you how your expression changes. He says, it's really wonderful. And then when we wrapped the scene, he came over and put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Thank you for making my job so easy." And of course, you know, those are the kinds of remarks that actors just hold on to.
Yes.
Because he didn't have to do that. That was incredibly kind of him to recognize a day player like that. And I just came away with such a good impression of a great director, and he is a great director. And the sense that with someone like that, you can trust them with your performance. You can, when you put yourself in their hands, you're in good hands.
Right.
It's a safe place to be. So it was a wonderful experience. I loved it.
That's amazing. Wow, that is quite an experience.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
And I've had, I won't say a similar experience, it's along those same lines, but I was filming an industrial for the FBI, and I was an investigator for the Center for Disease Control. And we're filming and it's going, and then we take a break, and one of the guys calls me out in the hall, and he says, "Hey, I gotta tell you, you're real smooth. It's really kind of cool watching you do that." And I said, "Thank you very much. Keep that in mind the next time you have a project." And he says, "Absolutely, we will." So it's just, it's a good feeling. So I would have never thought that I would have talked about that role had he not brought me out in the hall and said something like that, you know what I mean? Because before that, a couple of TV commercials I've done, they were fun to do, and I watched those on TV, and I would have always thought those would be the things that I would talk about. But when that guy brought me out in the hall and told me that, changed everything.
Yeah.
So.
Very cool. How about you, Firas?
Since we're talking about compliments, I'll continue on that one. I guess the biggest compliment I got was from a director named Al Robbins. We did a very heavy feature film that deals with 9/11 and all that stuff. So, and he's the one who directed and wrote the script. So I just remember him mentioning after the first or second day where we had like a very heavy scene, he just said that you made me care for this character. So it blew me away, like, because this is coming from someone who wrote the film and had a certain idea about the character, yet I was able to change that after, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years of writing something and being fixed on that idea. So I felt like this was a very awesome compliment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to hear. So did you have to audition for that role so you had to audition for that? What was, now auditioning is something that all of us go through.
Yeah.
And we're constantly on the hustle for our next job, and going to auditions is how we obtain them. Now, are there any things that you have learned throughout your years of auditioning? Is there any like key piece of advice that you have received in order to do a good audition?
Yes. Think before you act. And by that I mean, don't think about your lines. Think, get it in your head, what is my character thinking about and why does she feel this way? And that has to be in your head before you take any action in the scene. The camera needs to see the wheels turning in your head.
Right.
Needs to see that something's going on. Otherwise, the actions that you're taking don't make any sense. They just kind of come out of nowhere. So think before you act.
That is a very good piece of advice.
Mine's always been, don't be nervous, Sitting in there going into an audition, a lot of people get nervous, and I was told, and it works, I think back that, in the experiences I've had in my life, this is nothing,
Right.
So I go in, I do it. Granted, few roles I get picked for, a lot of roles I don't get picked for, but I have been told that, well, it's amazing that you're not nervous when everybody else
That is amazing that
is.
you're not nervous.
But if you think about it, we can all think about experiences we've had in our lives that those compared to this is nothing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You put it into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, most actors do get nervous.
Yes.
We have this wonderful advantage these days in being able to see things on on the internet, on YouTube, online, in various places. And one thing that I often watch are auditions by big name actors.
Yes.
And you watch them and you realize they are just as anxious as you are when they're doing that audition. They have just as much trouble showing what they can do, because if acting is all about reacting to another person, reacting to what they're saying and doing, in an audition, especially if you're doing a monologue,
Yes.
there is none of that reacting going on. A monologue is essentially a speech. If you have a reader, they're reading it very flat, so there's nothing that you can hang on to. And so big name stars are struggling with that just as much as all of us do.
Certainly, absolutely. A big
Um,
piece of advice.
Well, I had one, and then I heard them, so I have
Oh.
two now. One is that it's a really good thing to be nervous for me, because then you have like this energy that's inside
Yes.
of you, and then you can just transform that into the role, wherever it is. So I'm always excited when I'm nervous, which doesn't happen a lot since I keep on doing it a lot. So it's always good to be nervous in my case. So that I see it in a different way, I guess.
Right. Well, you're able to harness your energy.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's a good
And
thing.
use it
Yeah.
to your advantage.
And the other advice is just take your time.
Yes.
This is like very important. Do not rush the lines. The people who are casting you, they're not interested in what the line is or how you say it. They're more interested in how do you like feel the role. What can you present that no other actor did? You know, like what makes you unique. That's what they want to see.
Yes.
So take your time. Even if you feel like they're rushing you, don't, just let it sink in and then say the lines.
Yes. Now, a lot of times it's nice when you are going to an audition and you either get to perform a monologue or they send you sides before. But how do you deal with feeling rushed when it's a cold read, when you are just given the sides as you walk in the door?
I don't deal with it. I usually it's always good to have the sides ahead of time.
Certainly. But when you're not given the opportunity, sometimes that can be incredibly challenging for your nerves and
Yes.
also for making sure that you do take your time and you do slow down.
Yeah, I don't do that well if it's like 5 minutes before.
Okay.
So that's like something I'm still working on. But when it is a cold read, usually sometimes I'm lucky because there would be a long line. So I would have like
So you have
20
time
minutes.
to read?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So that when it works for me. But this is something I'm still, it's not easy for me to deal with. Like if it's a 5 minutes thing, it's not it's not easy to nail it as if they sent it to you and then you can search what kind of character this is,
I find the opposite is true. I have learned to really, as long as I understand the context of the scene and I'm sure of the relationships between the people who are speaking, I find it's very good to just go with your gut on it. If the lines are hitting you a certain way, just go with that. There was a book out that came out a few years ago called Blink, and it had to do with actually foreign policy, but it dealt with the idea that your first impression of something, your first instinct, is usually the right one. And I think that applies to acting as well. If you're given sides and you don't have a lot of time to really look at it, as long as you understand the context, just go with your gut on it.
Very cool. Yeah.
What do you think, Jimmy?
I think it's sometimes like throwing darts at a dartboard, and you know what I mean. I can have sides ahead of time, and I go, I can nail this, and I walk in there, and it's a swing and a miss. Or other times I go in and I get them at the door, and I walk in and I sit down, and they go, wow, and I go, I haven't even said anything yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is it what they're looking for? Is it what they're listening to? If I had an answer for that, I'd probably be in, if I could see into the future or read people's minds or whatever, I'd be in Vegas right now staring at a,
At a slot
card
machine
dealer or
or
a slot
like a
machine
poker
or something.
table.
Yeah.
But I think what he's saying is that don't try to give, the person who is casting, don't try to anticipate what they want.
Yeah.
Don't try to give them what they want.
They don't always
give
have to
them
know what it is
who
they
you
want.
are.
Yes.
Because you're presenting a unique package of voice and look and age and all kinds of things. And you can't possibly know what they're doing. So you just, Alan Arkin said, he couldn't buy an audition, and then finally he just said, I'm going to give them the most interesting version of me that I can, and he started getting roles. So don't try to second guess the casting, just go in and give them yourself and do the best you can on it.
Absolutely. And sometimes what is really great, and I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, is when you go into an audition and they have an idea as to what they want,
Yes.
and you go in and you show them what you are and you change their mind.
Right.
And all of a
Exactly.
sudden they see it in a completely different way, and that's something that you can bring that no one else can.
Exactly, and there's a lot of stories where you learn that the role for a certain person was not even there at the beginning, but when they saw what he can do or she can do, they decided to add a role for that person. So you never know, and I don't think they know either. Like they're still figuring it out as well.
It's the great Steve Jobs line, which was, don't give them what they want, give them what they didn't know they wanted until they saw it.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Now, speaking of things that we want, I know each of us have roles that we would love to play. Now, is there any type of role that you haven't played yet that you are desperate to play?
Oh, absolutely. Comedy. I look at like Kevin James from King of Queens.
Yes.
Why can't that be me? I mean, that's my real life. My wife is, I don't want to say she's Leah Remini, but I mean, we watch that show and she looks at me and goes, "You are such him." And, so I think, not that I want to copy him, but I would love to have some kind of comedic role like that, where when you watch Kevin James perform, he's himself and it fits into this show. And I think that would be fun if I could find a role where I get to be my, goofy self and fit it into something. That's what I'd like. Yeah.
Right. I will tell you, I have for years wanted to play Ma Jode in The Grapes of Wrath.
Wow.
And I will tell you, I did a short film for the Robinson Brothers over in Baltimore a couple of years ago with no makeup. I mean, we shot it over a weekend in a row house that we had to turn the air conditioning off. It was the middle of August. We had to turn the air conditioning off to cut the sound. No makeup, stringy hair, and whatnot. I loved that. When I get out from behind makeup, I'm finding layers and layers of character that comes out. And the film just was phenomenal. It is my favorite film that I've done of everything, and I've done some that were really very good. But that one was so different, and I was so proud of the work that I did in that, because I was someone totally different. I was an Italian widow.
Oh, wow.
So as I say, I've always wanted to do Ma Jode, and then just a few months ago, I read that DreamWorks and Steven Spielberg have options to do a remake. So I'm ready.
There you go.
Call Steven.
Call them.
Call her.
Bring us with you.
How about you? Is there a role that you'd
Yes.
love to play?
Yeah, mine would be a silent comedy, if there's such a thing.
comedy.
Yeah, actually, there is such a thing. It's like Mr. Bean, if you remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rowan
so-
Atkinson.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be like a dream come true.
Yeah.
That would be so fun.
Such fun.
Yes.
Now, we don't have much time left, so I want to make sure we get into this. Are there any upcoming projects that are coming out for all of you, or is there anything that's going to be airing on television soon that we can all tune in and watch?
Well, the Identification Discovery Channel, I got a couple of things out there, and I'll be filming a thing, I think it's called The Wars, for the History Channel, that I will have a part in. So keep an eye on those channels. You never know where this might show up.
Well, this has been my year for playing members of Congress, having been a senator in a short film earlier in the year, The Monopoly Club, and then having a couple of scenes for House of Cards. But the summer, as you know, because you were in it with me, we did a wonderful web series called Cap South,
Yes.
created by Rob Rafferty. And I think he's currently out there beating the bushes for season 2, but it was great fun. It was the first time I've done comedy. And I know you did an amazing job in that.
It was so easy.
It was great fun.
I played her scheduler. You could rename a post office after Edgar.
We can do that. I'd have thought Congress would have better things to do than going around naming post offices for dead members.
Congress loves passing innocuous bills that don't affect meaningful change. It's a home run.
Wonderful! And what a fitting legacy for Edgar. Who wouldn't want that name associated with the United States Postal Service?
Through the snow, rain, heat, and broken escalators.
And Edgar loved collecting stamps. We still have bags of the neighbor's mail down in the basement.
And with your constituents' aversion to modern technology, Edgar's name will grace the vestibule for as long as the USPS is profitable. And it was so easy to work with you because the energy that you gave then gave me energy. So it was a wonderful
Everyone in that
reciprocal-
show had energy.
Right.
Everyone was crazy.
Right, but it was a wonderful reciprocal relationship of just giving. It
So
was
Cap South, it is can be seen on YouTube, and hopefully we will go forward with a whole new series next year.
Yeah, that would be
Nice.
fingers crossed.
Mine is called The Landlord,
Okay.
and it's a short horror musical. So yeah, it's a
Wow.
weird
Are you
mix.
singing?
I am actually. Yeah. That
They
would
make
be my-
musicals out of everything these days.
I know, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
Yeah, so it's gonna be very interesting to see how it's gonna look like.
What kind of character are you playing?
I'm playing the landlord, in it,
Okay.
and it's a very, very creepy guy, which is one of the types I play. So I'm like,
Is that one
I'm
of your
used to this.
typecasts?
I am. Yeah, this is one of them. So I'm used to that.
And you're going to
So-
be singing. Have you sung before?
No. So that was like very challenging and very nervous for me. Well, I was very nervous in the audition, but it worked out, and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
I'm sure you'll do great, and we'll keep an eye out for everything.
I can't imagine him singing with an umbrella and an axe. in
I
the other
know.
hand.
There is no
I
umbrella.
know.
Yeah.
No umbrella. And no rain, probably, right?
No rain.
No rain either.
Blood.
Right.
Blood.
Blood
Yes.
streaming down. Thank you all so much for coming in and
Thank
chatting
you.
with us.
Thank you
This
for
has
having
been
us.
Thank you,
wonderful.
yeah.
This has been Lights, Camera, Action with Allison Howard, and we've been speaking to 3 wonderful actors. Everybody should hire them. And we will be back with another episode soon. Thank you.